Olá, pessoal. Estamos começando aqui mais um Rock Cabeça internacional na Austrália. A gente está conversando com a galera da Austrália e hoje eu tenho a honra de trazer um ídolo, um grande cara do pop chamado Ben Lee. Hello, Ben. How are you doing?
Hello there, greetings.
Nice to have you here. I know
I'm honored.
it's very late in Australia. It's very soon here in Brazil. Talking about that, Happy Father's Day on Australia.
Thank you so much. Is it Father's Day in Brazil too?
No, no, no.
No,
It
yeah.
you have such a lovely daughter, Goldie, right? Or
Yeah,
Goldie,
Goldie. Yeah, she's
Goldie.
sitting right here. We were just at a friend's house. He's saying
Mhm.
Happy Father's Day to me, and he said, I'm asking about you.
Uh,
And we were playing music together, and it's been really fun. We're like singing together sometimes now, and it's really fun.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
So, I had planned a lot of questions for you, but something happened that a big guy comes to here, a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I discovered that you are expert on the Gallagher's brothers.
I
Champa
it's
super analysis.
yeah. It's not an expert, just fascinated. Like for a long time, my wife's favorite thing would be me reading out loud Oasis interviews to her. Like whenever a new
This
one
is
would come out in
very
like Q magazine or Mojo, I'd do a live reading of it. So when Lena Dunham, she'd seen the Supersonic documentary. This is some
yeah.
years back, and fell in love with it. And I said, "Oh, I read all these interviews." She's like, "Let's do a live reading." So we planned this whole evening that was just amazing, and it was like an exploration of all things Gallagher brothers. But they're just such archetypal rock stars. They're perfect.
Mhm. And what did you think about this comeback? Do you think this gonna go all over to the end, or they're gonna fight on
I
along the
mean,
way?
I think they both value money.
Mhm.
They I don't know. I think also it just seems like the paycheck is so big that you
Mhm.
do hear sometimes bands with massive paychecks just say they can't do it together. But I just can't imagine hating anyone that much that I
Mhm.
wouldn't take that paycheck.
Yes, maybe Johnny Marr.
Yeah,
Morris is
Johnny Marr,
also
he's apparently turning them all down.
yeah.
So he's very principled. I'm probably less principled than Johnny Marr. I don't know.
Ben, you love in your work, you love to mention other artists like Jay-Z, Pixies, Evan Dando. There's a painting behind me he did for me.
Cool.
Uh, do you have this urge to be like a pop chronicle, a pop criticism? Do you like talk about pop music, even though you are a good member of a pop music? What do you have this urge to talk about other artists?
I guess I just find it interesting. Like I find the act of being a fan interesting.
Mm,
I get very excited by music and by other artists.
mhm,
Um, I also think that coming from the time I came into music, like indie rock in the early 90s, it
mhm,
was a time where coming out of hardcore where the artists and the bands and the fans were sort of there was not as much of a barrier between them, and it just seemed like you could be in a band if you were a fan of music, and if you're I
mhm,
don't know, it just seemed like an expression of fandom almost. Like indie rock is like essentially just about being a fan of music in a way.
mhm.
So it just all was very natural, and I've always tried to be honest in my music. So talking about other music is part of what excites me.
Yes, it's because you have a podcast too. Weirder together with your
Hmm.
wife. Did you like to interview another people? Tell us about the content of your
Well,
podcast.
sometimes we interview people sometimes, but mostly it's just me and Ione just talking to each other. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like, especially as you get older, staying in touch with culture is something that becomes more of a luxury for people than when you're young. Like everyone stays up to date with everything. And we just kind of realized that a lot of people were interested in our world of, we're, in our 40s and 50s and still very passionate about art and culture and new music and film and fashion. So it just felt like people really wanted more of a glimpse into our world. And that was really where the podcasts came from.
Mhm. You were always reinventing yourself. You had a lot of albums. Each album, you are in some kind of new journey. You have this also have this need to reinvent yourself all the time. Each work you do. Tell us about your composition process, your conceptual process of making an album.
Well, there's like the ideas you consciously have. Like, I would like to explore this and I don't
Mm,
know, jazz fusion. I would like to do that. And then there's the ideas that sort of happen to you. And most projects, it's like you're having this balance of both, where
mhm,
there's some intention of what you're interested in at the time, but then there's the sort of accident of creativity and the
mhm,
work, like what the work wants to be. And I
mhm,
always think the work wants to keep changing and wants to show me new things.
mhm,
So, like right now, I haven't been in a writing space for a while. And it's
mhm,
like I can feel it, like it's almost like fishing, where there's like a
mhm,
nibble. There's a nibble on the line. It's not
mhm,
enough to reel it in, but it's showing me that it's happening. It's going to happen. So I'm
mhm,
right now just sort of like opening up to music, and then I'll let that sort of dictate the concept, and then the concept will reinvent it. It's just sort of this.
mhm,
It's this thing about being connected to the unconscious, and
mhm,
then it, it does feel important to me. Like I've always loved David Bowie and Bob Dylan and artists that each album was like a chapter of their life, and I
mhm.
just always loved that. It just was really meaningful to me. So yeah, I don't know. It's always seemed like that's the way to do it.
You're so intuitive, right? Intuitive, and you're like an actor. You are an actor,
I
right,
have that
Ben?
side. I have that
Yeah.
side.
You,
Yeah.
you need to dive into each concept, each album, and
Yeah, but it's not just acting. It's like the way I've lived. Like I jump in 100% to every
mhm,
experience.
mhm,
Um, so I don't even realize sometimes that it's like a character. It's more
mhm,
just what I think reality is at that time.
mhm.
Like I believe it.
Yes, and you can even be a DJ.
Yeah,
What's
sometimes.
your DJ name? Is a
DJ Dad Bod.
Dead Bad.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Cool.
yeah. It's just fun. It's like I've
Yeah.
literally might do 6 shows during the year, but it's fun. I'm going to do a wedding later in the year. I mean, I'm just kind of open to. I remember Moby saying in the late 90s, he was like, my advice to every musician is also learn how to DJ
Mm,
because you already love music and you love sharing music. It's something you can do that costs nothing to do. You don't have to bring anyone with you. Just do it.
mhm,
And it is fun. It's fun. Because it's like, I always remember ever since I was a kid, like having my friends gathered around my boombox being like, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to
mhm.
this. So you kind of just get to do that on a bigger scale.
Yes, it works for the pandemics, right? You were just
Yeah,
inside.
exactly. Exactly. I was just
Uh,
in the house.
yes.
Staying
Uh,
busy.
Ben, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry for my English. I talk Portuguese. Uh, but you're like the Beatles. It doesn't
You're
matter.
wrong. You said to
Yeah.
correct you if you're wrong. You're
No,
wrong.
no, you like the Beatles in a way that Beatles always wrote songs about love and positivity. And you, independent of the album, you always positivity. There's always some good energy, good vibes. I don't remember any album of you that you're miserable or you're suffering.
Yeah.
How can you manage that? How can you keep this flowing, this energy, this good vibe flowing all over your life, your work? Tell us about. Is there any formula?
Well, I think there is some depression in my music. I- you know, particularly the record I made when I was 18 called Something to Remember Me By. That's probably my saddest album. But
Mm,
still, yeah, it's not my main thing. I don't know. I want to lift myself up. Like I'm personally, I want to feel good. I want to feel happy.
mhm,
And essentially, I think when we make music, we're making it for ourselves. So it's the music we need.
mhm,
So I use the music that I need for my own situation. And
mhm,
so, you know, and you hope that other people need it too.
mhm. So we get to this great documentary. Uh, I was expecting to watch some of your songs in this documentary, some like on your stage, on your hits, but it's a personal journey. What's your region? Um, so,
I think we got you back. We're back.
yeah, yeah. I want to know the meaning of religion and discovering yourself to your music, to your life, because you still, to me, you still are a pop artist. You're a celebrity, but you find a way to live, uh, move from that. Tell us about what did you discover in this pop life that you are living. Because I'm talking to you. I'm not a huge journalist, but I'm talking. Tell us about how did you find your way through pop stardom.
Well, I mean, I think one of the good things about it, honestly, is that like I didn't have too much of it. Like there's a lot of artists that they get so big so young often too that they
Mhm,
don't have a chance to develop their artistic approach. Um, so in some ways, I felt very lucky that my success was always, it felt quite balanced in my life.
mhm,
Like I would have a successful project and then not a successful project. And
mhm,
that kind of thing where like I never got the illusion that everything was always going to be a total success. Because then
mhm,
you start thinking you're perfect or something. Um,
mhm,
but look, I love show business and I
mhm,
love the music industry. I love other bands. I love hanging out with creative people. So there's so much about what success as an entertainer gives you that I just love. Like I love, particularly in Australia, I can go to see any show I want and the artists will be like excited that I came to it. It's like that's so
mhm,
fun. You know,
mhm,
I think of that as a real privilege of my life. But at the same time, I don't want my whole life to be defined, and I never did want it to be defined totally by like the quest for external success.
mhm,
I had my own questions about meaning and what made life meaningful more than one thing more than another. And I think what really I came to realize that there's no special recipe for how to live a meaningful life, but being
mhm,
in the process of asking that question and however that expresses itself of like, how do I live a more meaningful life? If you're asking that, you are living a meaningful life.
mhm,
You know, so I think the recipe is like just being actually thinking. Like if
mhm,
people truly think and feel and chase things and fall over and you know,
mhm.
it's all of that. It's like it makes life very meaningful.
Cool, cool. I like your answers because they are like master classes. Uh, Ben, now you have also an activist side, and I guess, I was following you when Trump, when Trump won and all this stuff, and now he's coming back. Do you think Kamala has a chance against him, or we will have to stand up and fight all over again?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think I was so involved in that 2020 election. I just really, it occupied everything in my mind. It was such a
Mhm.
big deal to me. And we did win that election. And again, it was like most people, it was not about some huge passion for Joe Biden. It was
Mhm.
just about this guy, Trump. This guy's a mess.
Yes.
Whatever we're trying to do good in the world, this guy's not going to help with, basically.
Mhm.
So it just seemed like a recipe for disaster. Having lived through that, and then you realize, oh my God, this guy's like a cockroach. Like he just comes back.
Mhm.
You know, you can't get rid of him. And in some ways, maybe in life, we can't ever get rid of the enemy as we perceive it. It's just not possible. Like life is full of egos and people with agendas and selfish needs, and so it's always going to be there. So he's this character. I look at it coming. I got was very happy to see that. I guess the main thing that happened for me when Kamala basically got the nomination was how quickly things went, just at a public temperature feeling, how things went from hopeless to hope
Mhm.
overnight. Overnight. Like, and
Mhm.
to me, the question of whether or not she gets elected is not the thing I'm going to remember about this. The thing I'm going to remember about it is that the way you feel one day, the way a whole country feels one day, can change by the next
Mhm.
day. That's a powerful thing to remember because there's a
Mhm.
lot of areas that we are very depressed about.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things that feel hopeless. And we
Mhm.
now have the memory that things can change from one day to the next. That's important. So that's been the biggest thing for me.
Cool, cool. Ben, we talk about a lot of things, but you are on tour right now. Positive Energy, right? The single.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the expectations to run around Australia. If you will get to Europe, maybe
Yeah.
South America, just being
Yeah.
hopeful.
Look, the way I'm, careers are really interesting. And there's sometimes you catch a wave of momentum. And one of the things that I've really learned is to be really grateful when there's a wave of momentum and just to do it, just to go with it. And so there's a real thing happening for me in Australia with my shows where, I mean, I've played close to 50 shows this year and I've got about another 30 left to play, all in Australia. That's 80 shows.
Mhm.
Most tours you do 8 shows. Like
Yeah,
I'm playing in towns I've never been to, like I've heard mentioned. Like
yeah.
this is an extensive, and I'm just saying yes to these invitations. Now, where that goes in the future, whether someone reaches out to me from somewhere and says, "Hey, we want to bring you to France or to England," or
Mhm.
more than ever, I'm not. When I was young, I would go and lose money on things because it was promotion. I don't do that anymore. Like things have to at least break even. I consider that's like the universe telling you, yes, you should be there. Basically, it can cover costs. You know what I mean? So I'm very open to it, but I don't
Mhm.
know what that looks like at the moment. I'm just riding this wave, and it's just really interesting having this really big touring experience in Australia for the first time.
Yeah, it's a big country, just like Brazil. Talking
Yeah.
about being in places you never heard, do you remember anything about your tour in Brazil, Lee and
Oh
Hadner?
my God.
Yeah,
Oh, of course.
Belo
I mean,
Horizonte. Do you remember Mice?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We only did 5 shows or something, and it was one of those things. I mean, look, everyone knows when people talk about fans, Brazil, it's the winner, hands down. Like any musicians talk about, like, where are the best fans? It's Brazil. It's always
Mhm.
come to Brazil, come to Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazilians are like there. And so we had this little project that was just came out of our friendship. And we started doing Facebook Lives. And next thing we're in Brazil, like paying
Mhm.
to 500 people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess, yeah, the shows were all amazing. One of the things I really remember was going to the promoter's um, or the tour manager's house and his mum making us, was it Fiorde or it was like the street kind of stew.
Mm,
that they just put all the leftovers, all the meat parts in.
mm.
You know that, what's it called? It's
Mexido. I
maybe
don't know.
that. I don't remember the word, but it was something. It was like a thing that was like a almost like a tradition for poor people to like make these big stews. She was telling, anyway, whatever.
Sopão, I guess.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Soup.
Anyway, yeah, just a big, yummy, meaty soup. Anyway, that was one of my favorite experiences I had. I really loved that. It was just having this delicious food in someone's house. Like that's what's funny about working in other countries, that sometimes you don't get those experiences
Mhm,
um, where you feel like suddenly you're like, oh, I'm actually in this country. I'm not just like hotels,
mhm.
venues, restaurants, whatever. But yeah, I loved it.
I remember a feijoada. Feijoada.
Yes, that's it.
Beans.
That's the word. That's the word.
Feijoada. It's
Feijoada.
great. You know, a formerly friend of you, Evan Dando, is living here
Yeah,
in Brazil.
I know. Isn't he
Yes,
like he's like married Brazilian royalty?
yes. He's gonna marry the end of the year. So
I
I want
know.
you to leave a message to him. I'm gonna
Oh yeah.
take,
Well, like actually the audio or just pass on a message?
uh, you
Like,
anything,
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Just do
just
it.
I mean, tell him I love him. I mean, I'm so like it's so funny to have another artist who you're like my journey is so connected to Evan at such a profound level that like his influence on me is like never it's every day of my life. It's inside me. It's in my heart and in my mind, like his music and himself as a person. Like it's just amazing to have someone that influenced your journey so in such a profound way. So I'm just grateful for him all the time and I always wish him well.
Good. I'm gonna send him.
Yeah.
Ben, now it's the time that you choose one of your songs for our listeners, Rock Cabeça listeners. What would you
Yeah.
choose? And tell us about the why did you choose a special song?
What
Yeah,
like what do
okay.
people like to do? Like something obscure or something like what do people do?
Uh, Rock and roll. They like rock and roll.
They like rock and roll.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay, there's a song I've been playing live a lot off my last record called Like This or Like That. And it's about being a fan of music and about how there are these tribal divisions as a fan of music. So the opening of the song is um, this may come as some surprise, but I've always been more of a Stones than a Beatles guy. Because there's a
Mhm.
point where the path divides and your feet can only go down one road at a time. And later in the song,
Cool.
I talk about Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Shaka Khan and I forget who else I was talking about. But the point of it is, it's like the silliness of rock and roll, the choosing teams. What type of shoes do you wear? What
Yeah.
type of pants do you wear? It's the
Mhm.
silliness of it, but it's also
Yeah.
what makes it special.
Yeah.
So I wrote that song about that.
Like which Gallagher brother are you in?
Exactly. It's a lens. It's a lens. Yeah.
Yes. And do you have a favorite Gallagher brother?
I mean, I like everybody, I am both of them. That's why we love them because we are both. There are days I like the Liam side of me more than the Noel side, and then there's the days I like the Noel side more. But they exist. They coexist. They're connected.
Uh, Chemistry is called.
Chemistry. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So Ben, thank you a lot for your time. I know it's late. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure talking to you. I hope to see you in Brazil again.
Right on, Marcos. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're gonna listen into your song now. And goodbye. Good luck with positive energy.
See ya.
See you.